Never go exploring abandoned places with your dumbest friend. Trust me, I learned that the hard way last summer, and it's a story that still keeps me up at night. What started as a dumb idea to kill a boring afternoon turned into something I can't unsee. And it all went down in a creepy old factory nobody's stepped foot in for decades. Want to know how it went from laughs to pure terror? Stick around, because this one's a roller coaster. So, I'm Kevin. I'm 21 now, but this happened last July when I was still 20. My buddy James, he's the guy I've known since we were kids, texted me one day saying he was bored out of his mind. It was one of those sticky hot days where the air feels like it's clinging to your skin, and neither of us had anything going on. James comes from money. His dad's some big shot lawyer who works with fancy people, so they've got houses all over the place. One of them's this lake house I told you about in another story. But this time, we weren't anywhere near water. We were stuck in our hometown, a sleepy little spot upstate where nothing exciting ever happens. Or so I thought. James had this idea to check out an old factory about 20 minutes outside town. It's called the Grayson Textile Mill, or at least it was back when it was still running. The place shut down in the 70s after some big fire, and now it's just a skeleton of brick and rust sitting off a dirt road nobody uses anymore. Kids around here always talked about it being haunted, the usual small town rumors. People said they'd hear weird noises coming from inside or see shadows moving past the busted windows. I never bought into that stuff. Sounded like nonsense to me. But James was all about it. He's the type who'd watch every ghost hunting show on TV and then act like he's some expert. Me? I just wanted something to do that didn't involve sitting in my room staring at my phone all day. Here's where the problem kicks in. James isn't exactly the sharpest tool in the shed. Don't get me wrong, he's my best friend, and I'd take a bullet for him, but the guy's got a talent for making bad calls. Like, legendary bad calls. One time he thought it'd be funny to set off firecrackers in his garage. Spoiler, it wasn't. So, when he pitched this idea to sneak into the factory, I should have known it was a recipe for trouble. But I was bored, and honestly, I figured it'd just be us messing around in some dusty old building, maybe snapping a few pics for Instagram and calling it a day. How bad could it get, right? We grabbed our stuff, flashlights, a couple water bottles, and James insisted on bringing this cheap pocket knife he got at a gas station. Just in case, he said, like we were about to fight off a bear or something. We hopped in his beat-up Jeep and headed out. The drive was quiet, just trees and fields stretching out forever, with that late afternoon sun turning everything orange. The factory came into view after a while, a big, ugly chunk of brick and metal squatting in the middle of nowhere. The windows were mostly shattered, and the walls were covered in graffiti, some of it so faded you couldn't even read it. There was a chain-link fence around the property, but it was half collapsed, so we didn't even have to climb over. Just stepped through a gap like it was inviting us in. Up close, the place looked even worse. The front doors were boarded up, but one of the planks was loose, dangling like it had been pried off before. We tugged it free and squeezed inside, and, let me tell you, the second we stepped in, it was like walking into a different world. The air was thick with dust, and it smelled like mold and something sour I couldn't place. Our sneakers crunched on broken glass and bits of debris, and every sound we made echoed off the walls. The main room was huge, probably where they used to run the machines. Now it was just empty, with these massive steel beams overhead and chunks of the ceiling missing, so you could see the sky turning dark blue above us. There were old pipes snaking along the walls, rusted out and dripping something black onto the floor. I'm not gonna lie, it was creepy, but it was also kinda cool, like we'd stumbled into some post-apocalypse movie set. James was already acting like a kid in a candy store, shining his flashlight around and talking about how we might find some ghost evidence. I rolled my eyes but played along, sweeping my light over the corners of the room. That's when I noticed something weird. In the far corner, there was this pile of junk, broken crates, some shredded tarps, stuff like that. But sticking out of it was a shoe. Not an old, rotted-out shoe you'd expect in a place like this, but a clean white sneaker, like someone had dropped it there yesterday. I pointed it out to James, and he just shrugged. Probably some other kids messing around, he said. Made sense, I guess. We weren't the first idiots to sneak in here. We kept moving, poking around the ground floor for a while. There were these little side rooms off the main area, old offices maybe. One had a desk flipped over with papers scattered everywhere, yellowed and curling at the edges. Another had a corkboard still pinned with faded schedules, like the workers just walked out one day and never came back. The deeper we went, the darker it got, even with our flashlights. The sun was almost gone now, and the shadows were stretching out long and jagged across the floor. I started feeling this itch, like maybe we should head back, but James was too into it. "Let's check upstairs," he said, pointing to a metal staircase in the back. It looked rickety as hell, with rust flaking off the railings, but he was already halfway up before I could argue. The second floor was a maze of narrow hallways and smaller rooms, probably where they stored supplies or something. The air up here was heavier, like it hadn't moved in years, and it was so quiet you could hear your own breathing. We found a big room with these old sewing machines lined up in rows, all rusted and covered in cobwebs. James started joking about how the ghost of some overworked seamstress was gonna pop out and yell at us for slacking off. I laughed, but it was one of those fake laughs you do when you're trying to shake off a bad feeling. Something about this place was starting to get under my skin, and I couldn't figure out why. That's when we heard it. A noise, low and faint, like a scrape or a shuffle, coming from somewhere deeper in the building. We both froze, flashlights darting around like we could catch whatever it was. "Probably just a rat," I said, more to myself than to James. He nodded, but I could tell he wasn't so sure. We stood there for a second, listening, and it came again, louder this time, like something dragging across the floor. My stomach did a little flip, but James, being James, grinned like an idiot. "Let's go find it," he said, and before I could tell him he was out of his mind, he was already moving toward the sound. We followed the hallway, the noise getting clearer with every step. It wasn't steady, just these random bursts of scraping, then silence, then more scraping. My flashlight beam shook a little in my hand, and I hated how jumpy I was getting. The hall opened up into another big room, this one packed with stacks of wooden pallets and old barrels, some of them tipped over and spilling out rotted fabric. The smell hit me hard here, wet and sour, like something had died and been left to rot. The sound stopped as soon as we stepped in, and for a minute, it was just us, standing there, breathing too loud in the dark. Then we saw it. In the corner, half hidden behind a stack of pallets, was a trapdoor. It was metal, rusted around the edges, with a handle that looked like it hadn't been touched in forever. Except it was cracked open. Just an inch, but enough to let a thin sliver of darkness leak out from below. James crouched down, shining his light on it. "Dude, this wasn't here last time," he said. I blinked at him. "Last time? You've been here before?" He shrugged, looking a little sheepish. "Yeah, once, with some other guys a couple years back, but I swear there was no trapdoor." I didn't know whether to believe him or punch him. Either way, that trapdoor was giving me the creeps. The scraping had stopped, but now there was something else. A faint hum, like air moving through a pipe, coming from whatever was down there. James reached for the handle and I grabbed his arm. "Are you insane? We don't know what's under there." He looked at me like I was the crazy one. "Come on, man. It's probably just a basement. Maybe it's where the cool stuff is." That's James' logic for you. Dive headfirst into the sketchiest thing possible because it might be cool. Against every ounce of common sense I had left, I let him pull it open. The hinges screamed like they hadn't moved in decades, and a blast of cold, damp air hit us in the face. There was a ladder bolted to the side, narrow, metal, and slick with condensation. My flashlight barely cut through the blackness below. It was like the light just got swallowed up. James was already swinging a leg over the edge, and I cursed under my breath. "If we die down there, I'm haunting you," I said. He just laughed and started climbing. The ladder creaked with every step, and I followed him, my hands slippery on the rungs. It felt like we went down forever, way deeper than a normal basement should be. When my feet finally hit solid ground, I swung my flashlight around, and my heart just about stopped. We were in a tunnel, not some storage room or boiler space, a legit tunnel with rough concrete walls and a low ceiling that forced us to hunch over. Water dripped from somewhere, plinking into puddles on the floor, and the air was so cold I could see my breath. Old cables hung loose from the walls, frayed and sparking every now and then, like they were still live. James was ahead of me, shining his light down the tunnel. It stretched out further than we could see, curving off into the dark. "This is nuts," he whispered, and for once, he didn't sound so cocky. I was about to tell him we should turn back when we heard it again. That scraping sound, loud and close, echoing down the tunnel. It wasn't a rat. No way. It sounded big, deliberate, like something moving with purpose. My mouth went dry, and I grabbed James's shoulder. We need to go, now. But then we saw the light. Not our flashlights, a dim orange glow flickering way down the tunnel like a fire or a lantern. The scraping stopped, and the glow started moving, slowly but definitely coming toward us. James took a step back, bumping into me, and I could feel him shaking. "What the hell is that?" he hissed. I didn't have an answer. All I knew was every hair on my body was standing up, and my gut was screaming at me to run. The glow got brighter, and then we heard the footsteps, heavy, uneven, like someone dragging a bad leg. My flashlight caught something in the distance, a shape, tall and lanky, shuffling toward us. It wasn't right. The way it moved, the way its head tilted. It didn't look human, not completely. James dropped his flashlight, and it clattered to the ground, the beam spinning wild across the walls. "Go!" I yelled, shoving him toward the ladder. He didn't need to be told twice. We scrambled up, my hands slipping on the wet rungs, my heart pounding so hard I thought it'd burst. The footsteps were getting louder, faster, and I swear I felt something brush my ankle as I pulled myself out of the hole. James was already at the trapdoor, slamming it shut behind me, and we didn't stop to look back. We bolted through the factory, tripping over junk, crashing into walls, until we were outside, sucking in the night air like we'd been drowning. We didn't stop running until we hit the Jeep. James floored it, tires spitting gravel, and we didn't say a word the whole way back. When we finally got to his place, we locked every door and sat there, staring at each other, trying to process what just happened. That sneaker, the trapdoor, that thing in the tunnel, none of it made sense. We didn't call the cops. What were we gonna say? Hey, we broke into an abandoned factory and saw a monster? They'd laugh us out of town. Looking back, I still don't know what was down there. Maybe it was some squatter playing a sick prank. Maybe it was something else, something that's been hiding in that place since the fire. James swears he's never going back, and for once, I believe him. Me? I can't stop thinking about it. That factory's still out there, rotting away, and whatever we saw is probably still down in that tunnel, waiting. I keep telling myself it was nothing, just our imaginations running wild. But then I remember how cold that air felt, how real those footsteps sounded, and I'm not so sure. If you've got a story like this, some creepy place you've explored that left you shook, drop it in the comments. I need to know I'm not the only one dumb enough to do this. And hey, if you liked this, hit that subscribe button. It's the only way I'll keep spilling these nightmares for you.